I can say I'm having a lot more fun with coaching. It's much more flexibility, better work-life balance, and I also feel like I can impact a lot more lives doing coaching as opposed to real estate.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Marc Mawhinney. Previously, episode 173 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been only 2 years, 9 months, 10 days, 2 hours, and 30 minutes since we last spoke.
Think big. I think people think way too small, and they need to expand their thinking like you did. So that would be my advice, is to think big.
That was then. This is now. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me back, Angel.
Well, it's a great pleasure to reconnect with you, Marc. Wow! Almost 3 years since we last spoke. So do give us an update. Like, what's going on in your world? Are you doing the same things you were doing before?
Well, yes and no. I mean, my business, still the focus is the same. I'm helping coaches get more clients without paid ads. But of course, in 3 years, there's been new offers and new programs and lots of new people I've been helping out. So I think the biggest change since the last time I was on the show, I would have just started my Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle, not too long before that. And now it's grown. It's at almost 20,000 members by now. So that's really grown up. It was a baby when we first talked, and now she's all grown up.
Oh my, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, well done, well done. I can see how that panned out. There was a lot of hard work that you put into that. Is that accurate?
It is a lot of hard work, but doesn't feel like work. So I know that sounds kind of cliche, but if you're having fun doing it, it doesn't feel like work. So it's not like I'm out in the forest chopping down trees or hauling heavy rocks somewhere. So I enjoy it. I'm having fun.
Now, you moved from being the real estate agent to being the coach that was helping others, not just coaching only, but you're helping other coaches. And there's the podcast. Tell me, do you regret at any point making that change from being the real estate agent to being the coach now?
I don't. I mean, in a lot of ways, the choice was made for me because I went through a business closure, as you know from our previous conversations. So I was kind of forced away from it, where I said, you know what, I'm sick of this anyways. I want to do something different. And not to knock real estate, I had 10 good years through my 20s doing it, but I did not want to be doing it when I was 80 years old. So I'm glad I made the transition. I can say I'm having a lot more fun with coaching. It's much more flexibility, better work-life balance. And I also feel like I can impact a lot more lives doing coaching as opposed to real estate. So no, I don't regret it.
Building your radar is important, and you touched on that when you were in real estate and now as a coach. How have you been evolving where that is concerned?
Well, one of the things with real estate, it installed a lot of bad workaholic habits into my life. And so I'm still working to get away from those because, of course, in real estate, you have a phone to your ear 24/7 and you're always working. So I've gotten much better now with coaching, being able to relax. You and I were chatting just before we started recording, and I just took 2 hours on my back deck enjoying the sun here in Canada and reading a good book and just relaxing. So I've gotten much better that way, and being patient, not feeling like I always have to work.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Moving from the day job as well, I think is a similar type of scenario that occurs where you think, all right, it's needed. Like I need, and of course you need to work, of course, we agree, but definitely it's more quality than quantity, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would never want to do the 4 hour work week. I know some people aspire to that. I would go absolutely crazy if I was working just a few hours a week. That being said, I don't want to work 130 hours a week either. And you hear now the cult of hustle, where people think you have to be working 24/7. So there's some people I follow, some of their stuff, like Grant Cardone. There's Gary Vaynerchuk I follow a little bit, not a ton. But with some of those guys, I think they're a little overboard. And they're the type of guys that if you're getting a shower and you're not working while you're in the shower, you're a slacker and you don't want it bad enough, which sounds kind of crazy. So I think that there's a happy medium, but I definitely lean more towards the workaholic side of it as opposed to that 4 hour work week.
I think we're very much guilty of allowing others to define what success is. Would you say that's something you're encountering with those you're coaching?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, social media, we're all on social media a lot, and we see people who are, again, in that cult of hustle and sharing all their posts, and you think life's going great. And you can start thinking that, oh, gee, if I'm not working all the time, then I am a slacker and I don't want it bad enough. So, one of the things I've done this year, and which has been really good, is I've taken myself off social media for chunks of the day, and I've spent that time instead reading or thinking, journaling, something, not scrolling a news feed on Facebook or Twitter or one of the social media platforms, because I think it's much better quality reading time with a good book as opposed to scrolling down your news feed and seeing cat videos or political debates. I mean, I love politics, but oh God, coming up to 2020, that's going to be nasty next year with the American election. So I'm trying to be careful not to fall into that rabbit hole too much.
And what about your podcast? Listening to quality content as we are speaking about. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're up to episode number 600 and, oh geez, 16 or 17, I think, today. And one thing that I've done recently, especially, is I've been getting some, I say, more controversial guests on the show, interesting guests. And I've had some people that have disagreed with that. I've gotten some flack. I've gotten more good, positive feedbacks, but I've had some people say, oh, you shouldn't have given that person a platform. So, for example, I had James Arthur Ray on the show not too long ago. He was the star of The Secret. And then he had an event in Sedona where several basically participants died on his watch. And he spent a couple of years in prison. And it was just a tragic accident. But now he's making a comeback. And I had him on my show to explain how that's going for him. And a lot of people really enjoyed that interview because it was talking about resilience and how do you bounce back from tragedy and challenges and so on. But there were some people who said, no, Marc, you shouldn't have had him on there. I would much rather have challenging guests like that, even if it is controversial and it pokes a bear with some people, as opposed to just being bland and vanilla with guests.
Yeah, it's a concept of truth, isn't it? Like, truth is important, especially within the online space. I've seen it time and time again with individuals who are like the candlelight. They come out, the wax burns, and then they're done. There's nothing about them again. I think having the challenges is a great way to let people understand the truth, and the truth is very important, especially in this space, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you've been in this game a long time too, Angel. So you know that the worst thing that you could do is be boring because it's just such a noisy atmosphere out there. It's gotten a lot noisier since I started coaching in 2014 even. And Richard Nixon said the worst thing than being wrong is being boring. And I agree with that. So I do not want to be boring. I don't want to do what a lot of other coaches do. They play in the mushy middle where they will never offend anybody or take any strong stances. I would rather be polarizing, take some strong stances, be controversial at times, because at least then you're entertaining and you're not being boring.
Now, you do have a twin. What does he do and what is his life like? Is it similar?
Yeah, I have a twin brother, Matt. So he's not a coach. He edits podcasts. He handles my show and he handles a lot of big shows out there. So he edits James Wedmore's show, Mind Your Business podcast, and Jenna Kutcher and some really big names. And he is different than me. Like I said, I like to get in there and rile things up a little bit and stir the pot. He prefers not to do that. He's a very hard worker and he enjoys what he's doing, but he's not out there as much as I am. He likes to be behind the scenes a little bit more.
We've both have had a ton of conversations, and I found that there's one conversation that I have been having more regularly, and it's the concept of the conversation with death. Have you had that conversation, Marc?
Oh, boys. Well, I just turned 41, so I like to think I'm young until I'm around people in their 20s, and then I think, no, I'm not that young. So there is something to be said for when you hit that middle age time of your life that you start to see over the horizon a little bit more, and you start to think of things like legacy and being remembered and impact and so on. The best example of how your thinking changes is back when I was in my early 20s. I started real estate when I was 21. And it was all about just money, money, money. And I had a conversation with another person in my real estate office. And the conversation was around whether you would do a job that you absolutely hated and detested for $1 million. And at the time I said, heck yes, it's $1 million a year, and that adds up over time. Now at 41 compared to 21, I could say that no, I would not do that because life's short and I'm not going to do something I hate for money. But back then, that's what it was all about. So I like to think as I've gotten older, I've gotten wiser, but I still love money. I don't pretend that I don't. Like, a lot of coaches try to make it seem like they could care less about money. I'm a very proud capitalist. I love the green stuff. I love what it can do for a person. But I think that it also has to be, there's other things balanced with things like impact and what your legacy is going to be and so on. So that's how I've changed in the last 20 years.
No, I want to say thank you, Marc, for two things. One, for you being who you are, continuously being that motivation, that light, if you would, for the consistent aspect of what one can create when they remain consistent to their passion. And two, for not letting me drive out there to meet you, because I would have driven out and then I would have realized what it would have taken to get so far east to then go so far west. So I want to thank you for that.
If I'm not mistaken, you made it as far as Portland, Maine. I think you were somewhere around there. And that's about, I think, a 6-hour drive from me. I say it's in the same part of the world, but it's not right next door. So if it was any closer, if it was an hour or two, I would have been there. 6 hours, 12-hour round trips, a little bit further.
Yeah, it would have definitely been quite a bit to get out to you. But it would have been interesting, and I do hope at some point we do get to see what there looks like. I think now is probably the best time and no other time for the Caribbean guy who's speaking here, right, with the sun.
Yes.
I'm guessing it's cold out there.
Well, actually, it's very warm right now as we're recording. So the misconception where I'm at is that we're living in igloos and it's snow 365 days a year. But actually, in the summers, it gets up to 100 Fahrenheit quite a bit. No, it's been beautiful weather, and it's a great part of the world. It's just I wish those first couple months of the year were different.
Love it. Now, the Marc Mawhinney Minute, is that podcast still going on as well?
Yeah, that's a flash briefing that I'm doing with Alexa. So I've been doing that now for, I think, 470-ish episodes. And those are daily 1 minute, just quick little snippets, whatever's on my mind. I put it out there. So yeah, the Marc Mawhinney Minute is still rolling strong.
Love it. Well, Marc, again, this has been a great pleasure. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, just congrats to you. And I've been watching you for years. We've known each other for a long time. And the amount of interviews that you've done is really impressive. So I've mentioned your name to a lot of people. And I think that says a lot that you've been able to do what you've done. So congrats to you, because I'm sure you're used to praising your guest. Maybe you don't get as much as you should on the other end. I'll say kudos to you for doing that.
I appreciate that tremendously. Amazing audience. There is the real Marc Mawhinney, biggest supporter, has been a supporter. Appreciate you, champion. Again, Marc Mawhinney, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.